Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of Before The Punchline comedy podcast. We're back with another episode for you to listen to. Hopefully, this one will be as long as the previous one, like 2 hours, maybe so, depending on how much time my guest tonight has. Speaking of who, my guest tonight is very special, I would say, not only for myself, but for a lot of people who have been interested in the world of English comedy here in Moscow. He is one of the original English-speaking comedians in Moscow. He participated in all the biggest shows of English stand-up in this country and traveled abroad several times and performed there. And I would even call this edition of the podcast a COVID edition because usually my guests are sitting right next to me. But this guy, he's actually not here, but not because of the COVID restrictions or anything, because if last week we had an Australian who lives in Russia, this time around it's vice versa. We have a Russian who lives in Australia. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Gleb Tugushev. Hello, man. What's up?
What's up, Kirill? How's it going?
Not much, I want to say. So, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you or talked to you in ages. I believe like the last time we talked was 2 years
almost
ago.
2 years ago. Yeah, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, almost
At
2 years ago. Yeah, at least, right? Yeah. So, how's life been for you?
COVID, man. COVID's great. I mean, for me, not for everyone. Of course, it's an awful thing that happened to the world, but for me, it was pretty good. Pretty good. I got to work from home, and that's about it. It's really good staying at home while working. Just been a huge fan of that. Comedy wise, not that great because people still haven't figured out how to like sanitize mics. They still they started open mics, and it's like we're all sharing one microphone. Everyone is wearing masks in the audience, but there's like 10 comedians just passing the mic back and forth. It's definitely not safe. So I don't know how you guys go around it. You just have one mic and Russia, no COVID.
Yeah, COVID doesn't exist in this country, but although we used to have some restrictions in that regards, so like at the shows we would carry also one microphone, but after every comedian, like the host would come out and he would spray the sanitizer onto the microphone.
That's unsafe. That's more unsafe probably in terms of being electrocuted on stage. But then you're going to go out as a legend while sanitizing the mics, frontline workers, really. That's what it is.
It really reminds me of a comedian. Don't remember what country he was from, but so like a very old comedian, and he was performing at an open mic, and he had a heart attack in the middle of his set. And as he's feeling like that he's fainting, he takes the mic and he goes, "Imagine how funny it would be if you would see me die right here, right now in front of you. You coming out, trying to enjoy your evening, you're going to see me die." And then he died.
Who was it? I remember. That was some big profile guy. And wasn't that long ago. I don't remember. I instantly have the urge to Google it, straight away. It was pre-COVID, though.
Yeah.
I remember that happened. That's, being a host of the open mic and getting electrocuted rather than being just an established comedian dying of a heart attack on stage after telling your audience that you will. Probably not as good. Probably won't die a legend.
Yeah, I guess so. So I wanted to talk to you about stand-up. Yeah, surprise. And we usually split our conversations into two parts. First, we focus more on the person, behind the mic, and then him on stage. And that's what I want to start with, because you have been performing for quite a while, 6 years almost. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
It's on and off, but if you count from the first time that I ever stepped on stage, that's probably 9 years or something like that. But yeah,
wow.
As you said, surprise, talking about stand-up comedy, I'm probably the last person you should choose to speak to. Because first of all, there's been massive restrictions here in terms of just going out. You always had to wear a mask. So mics have been off for almost a year. They just started recently popping up again, and I'm finding it so difficult to get back in there. And I also took breaks as well. But I mean, I just jumped in and interrupted whatever you wanted to say. But really, that's exactly what it was. Basically, I took, I think, 2 big breaks from stand-up. But it feels like, every time you sort of go away from it, I'm not sure if it ever happened to you, but I remember Arun and myself, really, there's only 2 big pussies on the scene that just like, that's it. I'm done with this shit forever. And then we sort of inevitably find our way back in somehow. So I took a break in 2012. I think the first time I stepped up on the stage was 2010 or 2011. And then I did it for a year or 1.5 years. And I was like, this is my thing. This is the best. I think I told that story multiple times, but I'll still tell it again. I was doing it in English in Australia here while I was studying. And then when I was done with my degree, I went back to Moscow and I was like, no one's doing stand-up there. That's amazing. I'm going to become a legend. I've got 1 year of experience. I'm going to be ahead of everyone. This is going to be easy. It's like going to another planet where people haven't invented fire with like a box of matches or like in a canister of gasoline, just going like, let's light this shit up. I know how. Watch me, peasants. And then I came there and it turned out that people have actually been doing it. And I'm shit compared to them. So I went on stage and I did an open mic in Russian and I just bombed like crazy. It was my first time doing stand-up in Russian. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm never going back there. It's probably... like I would bomb before that, but that bombing, you have that like one good bombing that makes you think this is not for me. I gotta find maybe acting, like that would be good. Maybe like something more serious. People don't seem to like it. Maybe just a factory. Like I'll go, make shoes in a factory. This is it. Yeah, I'm done with stand up. And I was done for like 2 years. From 2012 till 2014 or even 15, I don't remember. And then I ran into Ivan Yavits. I might have told the story before, but basically I kept going to open mics in Russian, but just not perform. Kirill Sietlov, he was, I think we would just, chat randomly, and he would say, hey man, come on over, let's go get up on stage. And I would just come in as a member of the audience and I would just keep going and going. And I would tell him, yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'd go see his show. I saw his first special that he put together. It was really cool. And I saw like how big the audience is. And by that time, like I had a little bit of sense of regret. And that's what probably pushed me back on stage. Inevitably when he introduced me to Ivan and Nick as well. So Nick and Ivan were doing stand-up in English, the only people in Moscow that were doing it. There would be, in 2012, what are their names? Oh, God. I don't remember. So a couple of comedians brought Dylan Moran, who was the first probably English.
I remember because I went actually to that show. That was like a 2-day Irish comedy evenings or Irish comedy night show, and there was Dylan Moran. There was an Irish guy who was warming up for him. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. I remember him being much better than Dylan Moran simply because Dylan came to Moscow with his old program. So the last special that he recorded, that was the material he brought to that show, and I was like, man, that's lame. I have heard that before. I've seen this before, and I remember like the moment I got really disappointed in that show was when you remember at one of his specials he had like an intermission, and then they cut back to him on stage, and somebody kind of brought cake to him, and they put it and he was like, oh, it's a cake, and I was like, wow, that's cool. So it's like it's not staged or anything. It's completely improvised. And then he did the same thing in Moscow. So there is like a short intermission, and somebody brings the cake, to the stage, and he goes like, "Oh, it's a cake."
I think people saw it on the show, and they were like, "We're definitely gonna bring cake. That's how it works." They were just like, "That's how stand-up works. It's like a theatrical performance where you just do the thing." I think he even got flowers at the end of it. Someone was like he's like, what's it called? He's like a Russian famous musician on stage, like a Russian pop artist, like some grandma just carrying flowers.
Mikhailov, yeah.
yeah, just like, oh my god, that was wonderful. That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
people took their time to get used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the guy who brought him in one of them was Mirson, Igor Mirson. I think he was one of those.
Was the second one.
And Anton Borisov, yeah, those two.
That was the second time they brought him. The first time they brought him was 2012, and it was in St. Pete. It was in St. Petersburg in a restaurant with like massive tables with like cloths. It was the first time I've been in a restaurant with a cloth. I walk up and I'm like, oh, a stand-up show. That's amazing. And then there's like a what's it called? A person at the door, like a doorman going like, this is your table, sir. And this is your earpiece. Because they were doing live dubs. And I'm like, you guys are insane. You're out of your minds. And then I got to the table and people there were like, we love Black Books. What a show. What an amazing show. I'm like, I know, but have you seen his stand-up? They're like, have you seen his what? And I'm like, seriously? They're like, yeah, he's a fantastic actor. I wonder what he's going to talk about today. I'm like, it's jokes, people. It's going to be an amazing stand-up comedy. Yo, you're in for a treat. You know how you meet people it's probably not going to happen now. But like 7 years back, you meet people that know nothing about stand-up and you're like, I'm about to show you something. And yeah, he was on stage. I actually met a person at that table in 2012 at Dylan Moran's show that I met again a year ago. The guy was doing like, that's probably a detour from our conversation, but fuck it, it's a podcast. You see it?
Yeah, sure.
We do whatever we want. 3 hours with like, Kanye West, and they talk about everything. So I'm like, yeah, that's how it's gonna be. The guy there at the table was like, everyone was super interesting. I had nothing. I was like, I do stand up as well. And I think I just started working by then. So I was like, yeah, I got a job and I do stand up and that's it. There's nothing really interesting about me. And people at the table just went around and like one after another had interesting jobs and professions. And this one guy who was sitting next to me, he's like, yeah, I specialize in ancient books and like, antique literature. I'm like, what? Like, people don't read modern books, dude. Like, people, like, it's a struggle to get anyone to read a book in 2012 even. It's like everyone's watching YouTube, man. Like, why? What are you like? Is Bible? Is that what you're talking about? What antique books? He's like, no, like books from like 300, 400 years ago when they just started making books, I guess. And he came here to sell some antique books to Melbourne. There was like a convention and we met up with him. He like texted me all of a sudden because you were friends on Facebook with everybody. Like you walk outside within like few seconds of meeting someone, they're like, oh, add me on Facebook. So like I just get this random message about a year ago. He's like, hey man, I'm coming to Melbourne to sell some ancient books, remember me? And then it all clicked. Like that's the thing, when you make a new friend, make sure to tell something absolutely like memorable about yourself, just so when you message that person years later, they're gonna be like, Gleb loves to eat garbage or whatever. Like, Gleb married a cat. I remember him.
This is actually how I got my wife interested in me when we started talking. Like, because we met on dating app. Yeah, and I'm like, I have to make a good first impression or memorable first impression. Doesn't necessarily need to be good, I can puke. Yeah, I can puke on camera and send the video to her. That's memorable. Yeah, but
is that what you did? What'd you say?
No, I actually started the conversation by asking her, if you were a soup, what kind of soup would you be and why? So that's how I started our conversation, and she remembered it.
Do you remember the response though?
Yeah, she said pea soup.
And you're like, oh, my kind of girl.
Yeah, my kind of girl. Let's do this. Yeah, let's hop
pea
onto
soup.
this train. Yeah. So anyway, you mentioned that you first tried doing comedy in 2012, yeah, and that in Russian, and then after meeting Ivan and Nick, they kind of dragged you into doing English stand-up, right?
Well, they didn't. They weren't really interested in getting more people to do it. They were more interested in having a bigger audience, I think, at that time. And I just showed up, and everyone spoke English at the show. I was like, this is amazing. Because, like, that's how the scene is now. And I mean, that's probably how it's going to be in the foreseeable future. It's expats and people who want to learn English, I guess. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm not sure if it's the same. I haven't been back home in 2 years.
It is the same. It's more or less the same. We surprisingly right now we have much more expats than you would think, because like back in the day, I remember it being like 30-70, where 30% would be expats, 70% would be drunk Russians, something like that. Half of them didn't even speak English, and yet they were laughing.
It's fine. They were like, oh, this is novelty. Like, this is good. Like, it's a new format. A person with a mic. I remember many, many times, like, and with Ivan and Nick. So what happened was I showed up to their open mic, but I was a bit early. I was a week early, to be fair. I come up to this bar and there's no one there. So I text Kirill and he's like, no, I said the 16th. Like, it's a week from now. I'm like, okay, fine. So I went home all angry. I'm like, that's a sign from the universe that I don't have to do this. Like, it's not for me. I can stick to work. I can stick to music and try my hand in something else. But then a week kind of went by and I'm like, I want to meet those people. I want to meet those maniacs, absolute crazies who are trying to do stand-up in English in the middle of a country that, despises everything English, but still likes the culture. We like the translation. Like, it's hard to make it in like the music industry trying to sing in English within Russia. So you have to translate everything. That's why they keep saying that, I know you like hip hop, but that's why they keep saying that everything's sort of ripped off, like versus battle, like rap battling is ripped off. King of the Dot, majority of modern hip hop, or actually, 5 years back, majority of hip hop was ripped off from the West. And now it's turning into something interesting and new. And same with stand-up, right? No one had much faith in it. People were like, that's just Eddie Murphy. That's just, Louis C.K., but just translated. And that's exactly what it was, especially on YouTube, with all those kids. I'm not even going to mention the names, but they got so much, flack. They got so much aggression from people who actually knew what they were doing. But what they were doing, they were just translating the jokes into Russian. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And they were like, in the end, they admitted it, and then they started making their own jokes, and someone went into blogging, like Khavansky, is that the name? Yeah, that's.
Are you describing me right now? Like,
nah, man. I knew you didn't translate anything. You just ripped it off and said it in English. Just kidding.
I was just, well, that's lying on the ground. What's found is found. Yeah.
How about this? No one's gonna know except for Igor that watches everything on YouTube. You can't run past this guy. Like, you say something, he's like, just give me a second. Just gets on his phone, like, I saw a meme last week. This is from that meme. This is not your joke.
Oh yeah.
He's the joke.
He's got some pretty tough competition right now, because we have some guys who are doing stand up on a weekly basis at like Steal the Show Comedy, who watch stand up like every single day. There's a guy, Colombian, Sergio. I sat down with him, did the podcast as well. He listens to all the comedy podcasts there are. Like, really, like, you name the podcast, like, he listens to it. And I'm like, how do you get so much free time? And I know that he has a child, like, he has a little son. Yeah, like, he's got a job. I'm like, how do you do that?
It's incredible. It's a disease. It just gets into you. But, like, with me, and maybe Arun, and maybe a couple of people that I met, sometimes it leaves your body, and you're, like, kind of, put it all together again, and you're like, what am I doing? what is this for? Like, this is, oh, no. And then you just stop for a while, and then at some particular point in your life, it just gets back. And that's exactly what happened in 2015, is I walked up to that bar, Nick was there, and he was like, hey, man, what's up? And I'm like, and he's like, my name's Nick. And you're like, must be a foreigner. He must be a foreigner. And then, you know, maybe like a month later, I found out that he was Russian. After speaking English to him, you know, on every conversation on VK and Facebook. And I saw the open mic. There were 4 people in the audience or something like that. And I think Ivan was like, great turnout. What a great turnout today. Like, so good. Wow, we're killing it. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I used to perform in front of empty chairs. Like before Nick was even here. Like, I've been doing this for a year or something at that point, he said. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, I just come up to this bar. You know, I know the owners, and I pitched the idea to them, and they're like, well, we're not doing really well ourselves. There's a big empty room in there, so you can just go and do your bullshit in there. There's a microphone. We do karaoke there sometimes, or some shit. And I mean, the place looked really dodgy. Like, it looked like it was just a big money laundering scheme, because there were never people there, and they would sell books as well. Or they didn't even sell them. They just gave them away. There was like a stack of books from some like female writer on time management or business or something like that. You walk out and it's just like how to sell shoes. Legit, and you just pick up a book.
It's like,
still have it.
You know, it's like that shopping network that we have in Moscow, which was called like Moscow Stork, I think. You know, they sell all the bullshit for cleaning,
money
and
laundering,
you're looking at that.
100%.
Yeah, you're like, how come there are like barely any people in there, and yet they have the branches like in the center of Moscow? I mean, I kind of know how much the rent costs in the center of Moscow. You don't pay off your rent and something extra from above, you know, by selling washing powder. I don't know.
Dude, they got more space on Mayakovskaya than Respublika. Which is a massive store.
Yeah,
it's a massive store. And it's like half of it is like children's bicycles or some garbage.
Well, I mean, everyone needs something to wash their hands with, but
it's insane. I was there, actually. I remember I walked in distinctly. And I'm like, okay, so people do shop here. I am here. And then I realized I didn't need anything. And I just walked out. I'm like, it's definitely money laundering. So that was the kind of place, that was the kind of bar that they were performing stand-up in. Naturally, there was never people, but at least it was better than, you know, performing stand-up in front of chairs. So for Ivan, it was a huge step up. He was like, oh, we got 6 today. Killing it. And so I jumped on the mic. I don't even remember. I don't think I even had jokes. I just kind of walked up to it, and I just said something about my day, or maybe I had a couple of things to lay off my chest, and people laughed a couple of times, and I'm like, all right, so I still got this. I still like it. It's like, you know, like it's like a compulsory need to hear people's laughter. That's what it is. That's what's sitting within you. It's like actors have a compulsory need to be visible, to be on stage, to be seen, right? I was watching an interview today with Lapienko, and he was talking about how he's playing a dead body on stage, or beer, something like that, a bottle of beer. And basically said, you know, I have to act, but I don't have any lines, but I still want to be seen. And that desire to be seen exactly similar to the stand-up comedian's desire to be laughed at with, doesn't matter. Just hear laughter all the time. And so I was dragged back into it, right back into it. And we started performing at that bar. Shortly thereafter, we started performing at another bar called Cherry Cafe on Tverskaya. Just another no-name place. I really don't know where they got those places from. They basically, like, they were all like places where you have a coffee once in your life and forget instantly about. But, you know, every week they're like, let's add another spot for our, you know, 7 loyal audience members to go to again. It's just a different address. And then people started slowly popping in, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think they were particularly interested in more people performing. They needed more audience, because I remember distinctly how I hosted for the first time. I don't know. Do you remember the first time you hosted?
Yeah, I do remember the Jim and Jacks. It's very difficult to forget every single one of your first times doing something if that happened in Jim and Jacks. Like, it's very difficult to forget that.
I remember the first time I had a blackout in Jim and Jacks. But yeah, tell the story about hosting.
Yeah, I remember like that was the time when I just I was bouncing back from all that stealing stuff after I got exposed and everything. Yeah, and I basically I recorded an entire episode, dedicated to that, why you shouldn't do that. So I was basically reduced to performing only in Jim and Jacks, because the guys didn't shut the door right in front of me. They were like, okay, so start from the ground, build yourself back up, and then we'll talk. And Jim and Jacks was the only place that welcomed everyone. Like, you could have killed a baby and a puppy at the same time, right in front of a bunch of older ladies. You would still be forgiven and let into Jim and Jacks and perform.
Yeah, they're like, here's your beer. That was a okay show.
Yeah, that was great. Do that again, yeah. And so that was the place where I hosted my very first show. And I remember, like, I was freaking out. Like, at some point you start having those panic attacks when you're doing something for the first time. Yeah, like, no matter how confident you are the entire day, like, for me, it's 2 hours before the show or before any type of event. I'm starting to freak out. Like, oh, I shouldn't do this. I should just leave. Cut my veins. That will be a great excuse. I cut my veins, guy. I can't host. Please let me out.
Hello, I'm in the hospital. Can't make it. Sorry.
Exactly. Let Igor or Abed host. They can do that. But I got some jokes prepared, because I don't remember. Oh, that was Abed, I think. He told me back then, he was like, man, if you have at least 5 minutes of good material, you can host, because your job is basically to warm up the crowd, and that's it. And that was the mentality I had. I went in there. I had a couple of jokes that I wrote. Like, they specifically emulated, like, it looked like I would talk to the audience, but I actually didn't. I had
participation.
Like, I had all the replies they could give me in my head, and I had options to choose from, So that was like a game, basically, like a programmed game. And that went more or less good. But I remember, like, the minute I got there, I was sweating like a whore in a church, like, basically that was me. I got off stage. I'm like, I need a beer, and I just downed 2 glasses of beer, like, for 2 minutes. And that was that. That wasn't a bad show. I've had much worse shows which I hosted. But yeah, I was freaking nervous. I don't even remember half of it. I remember it wasn't that bad. It's just kind of not a very bad assessment, I would guess.
You remember your first time, but you never remember your worst or the best time. Well, sometimes you remember your best time, but I mean, if you had a few, then they sort of get lost in the
shuffle, yeah.
Yeah, in the shuffle. But you definitely remember your first time. When I hosted the first time, that's what I said. Like, it was just me, Ivan, Nick, and there was Steven at that point, and there was Matthew was still performing, and I think that was the time, sort of around the time where I met Igor. I think I was eating soup. I remember I was eating soup at the bar, and he just walked by, and he's like, he gave me this look like, "Oh, are you crazy? You're eating soup at a bar?" But I had like, I don't remember what it was, but something was wrong with my stomach. I think at that point I was either drinking too much or stressing too much. So I had, I went to the doctor. They put a pipe in my throat, with the video camera. And apparently, you're supposed to do anesthesia before you do it. Like, or apparently you're supposed to be even asleep when you do it. My friend is a doctor in Australia, and I spoke to him after the procedure, and he was like, you are meant to be unconscious when they do it. And when I came to the Russian hospital, they basically said, open your mouth, and they had a spray that kind of numbs your throat, and they just did just one spray. Like, I'm 100% sure, like, the instruction says at least 3.
I know, yeah. I know what you're talking about, because I had the same procedure done to me 8 years ago. I also had some problems with my stomach. I went in there, and yeah, they also like sprayed something into my mouth, which was I think it was supposed to be a kind of a freezing stuff that would freeze your tongue, and so that you wouldn't throw up. When they put this pipe into your mouth, but I remember that very vividly, because I suffered.
Everybody
for 15
does. It's
minutes. I suffered for 15 minutes, and I remember at some point I believe that my mind didn't play a trick on me, because I remember like they're pulling this tube into my mouth, and then at some point they stop, and the nurse turns to the doctor, and she goes like, looks like we missed the spot.
Oh,
I'm like, son
no.
of a bitch.
Did they put it back in?
Yeah, they pulled it out a little bit, and then I guess that they put it into the correct spot. Which basically is like my first sex, but okay.
I was gonna say we're walking right into that. But I had to do it twice
Somebody
as
had
well.
to say that.
I had to do it twice as well, because that thing, I don't think it's meant to make you not throw up, but I never had that procedure done before. But what they do when you sign up for it, I think they mention to you, or you're supposed to know that you're not supposed to eat before the procedure.
Yeah, they do.
I had a big breakfast that day. I had, I still remember, I had like eggs, and I had some sausages, and I had some bread, and I had like a couple cups of coffee. I was like, okay, well, yeah, that's it. And I didn't think that the thought didn't cross my mind. I thought that, like they can kind of wiggle around the eggs. They can go around. Like, I don't know. I just didn't think about it. I had a big, like, continental breakfast sort of thing. And I walked up. They put that pipe down my throat. Maybe like, halfway through, I just start throwing up like there's no tomorrow. Like, it's like I'm 15 and I had like my first drink just everywhere, and they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know, just probably very sensitive. They're like, no, where's the food coming from? I'm like, my belly. It was delicious. This is a waste of money, clearly. And they're like, you're not supposed to eat before the procedure. I was like, it makes sense. It makes total sense. They're like, we'll see you tomorrow, idiot. Yeah, the next day I went in, but I already knew how it felt, so I was all like jittery and stuff. I didn't eat not just because they told me not to, but also because I was just mad stressed out about having to go through this whole thing again. And they had 3 middle-aged Russian ladies holding me down on the bed because I was like, get that thing out of me. Just take it out. I was like, literally, I don't care. I'm going to die from ulcer. Just take it out. I can't go through this. Because I knew when they reached that point, by the time I threw up, they've still had a lot more to go. And they weren't really rushing. Like, one of them, the main one, the general, was like, hold him down. And she was just looking at that screen into my stomach, but really into my soul. And they just, like, one of the ladies was just... And the other one was holding me down. And damn, those like Russian nurses are strong, man. They're really strong. They should do UFC or something, or like MMA.
Yeah, they should. I bet Khabib's winning streak would come to an end if he had to face at least one of those nurses. Like,
dude, the grip on that woman was just and that was the closest I ever been to real torture. So like if they asked me something personal. Like after that and threatened me to put that tube back, I would tell them everything. Every secret, everything. Like that's like just not to go through that again. Like they don't have to, put like an iron to my feet or like, pull my fingernail. Just threaten me with a noscopy, whatever it's called. It's not colonoscopy. That's the other way. Like that's the other one I'm dreading.
Yeah, they call it gastroscopy or like in Russia, Gastroscopy, yeah. Like, I'm just picturing it in my head, like they're questioning you, like interrogating you, and then like one of them goes like, "Oh, he refuses to tell the truth. Bring in the pipe."
I'll be like, "Yes, the plutonium is there. It's right there. Just let me go." But
yeah, that's my castle in Gelendzhik, not Putin's. No. That's me, man.
I bought it. That's my.
I bought it from him.
Aquadiscoteca.
Oh man,
So yeah,
crazy.
Sorry, go.
That's one question that I would ask him. Like Duch always asks people who he interviews, like, if you get a chance to meet Putin, what would you ask him? Like, I would ask him, dude, what is Aquadiscoteca like? Tell me, please.
I really want to know. I really want to attend like an event in a place like that. I've never been invited to an Aquadiscoteca. It sounds amazing, but apparently people are trying to emulate it now. Like a lot of people are like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have our own. He's got his, must be fun. Like when you have all the power and the money in the world and you decide to do that, means it's pretty good. And the mud room. I need to get one of those, man. Now,
I think that he's just trying to build his own Neverland, but it's like triple XL size or something like that.
Yeah, less kids, more mud, I guess.
more
gold,
less kids, more KGB, please.
Yeah. Oh, how long we've been on the call and we're already talking about Putin? 40 minutes. That's the mark. So we already discussed a gastroscopy.
Yeah, that's it. Like it's Saturday. It's 40 minutes in. I think that a comedy podcast should always mention Putin. I believe that. I think you can talk about him from comedy perspective.
That's probably the only way I can talk about him, especially being in a foreign country, man.
Oh yeah. How was your transition to English stand-up? Because you tried doing that in Russian at the beginning, then you switched into English. Was it easy, more difficult, and how did you feel performing in English compared to Russian?
I started in English. So the first time I did it was in English, and it was here in Australia. I went over to my friend's place to have a beverage, and he was like, "Oh, we should watch some stand-up." And I was like, "What is stand-up?" That was 2010. And he showed me several comedians in one go. He showed me Tim Minchin. He showed me Jimmy Carr. He showed me Eddie Murphy's stuff, because I'm a huge fan of Eddie Murphy, the actor. That was my favorite. We all watched those movies on like SDS on Saturday at 8 p.m. Coming to America.
We grew up on them.
Yeah, man. Nutty Professor. All of that stuff was just huge to me. Like, same with Jim Carrey. I had no idea the guy did stand up until, I started watching everything. So, and then there was an open mic, and basically I went for that and did well. I like all my jokes. I didn't steal them particularly, but I basically, I realized how Jimmy Carr does it. I realized how many he's got, and I realized the approach of one-liner, and especially the one that's very, like, it's easy to make dirty jokes. It's pretty easy to make dirty one-liners. Like, you just say the most whacked out, fucked up thing and precede it with some kind of setup. So I did that. I did a 5-minute set. I don't really remember any of the jokes I had. I mean, like, if I try hard, I'll remember it. So for me, it was natural, like going from English stand-up, and I would do that 5 minutes every week. Well, not that, but like a new 5-minute every week for about a year before I came to Russia. Then I did it in Russian. I met all the peeps that were doing it. I think the mic that I bombed at was hosted by Ruslan Belый. Is that his name?
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah,
the massive dude, like who's huge now. So yeah, it was hosted by him. So basically, I don't think we clicked, because you know how when you're hosting, you gotta pay out whoever bombs, so the audience bounces back, right? You have to be sort of mean to them. But I didn't know that, so I was like, oh, the dude's a dick. like fuck him forever. Like I still have something, like every time I see him on screen, I'm like, oh God. But like I've never really watched his stand up. Maybe he's good, but I think that little thing just kind of completely.
I had the same kind of thing with Sietlov, with Kirill Sietlov, because I've told this story so many times before. Like, fuck it, I'll briefly say it again. Yeah, because you probably didn't know that. The first 3 times I did stand up, I did it in Russian, and that was bad. Like, I bombed to shits. And the third time I did that, I did it in Alibi, and Sietlov was hosting, and I had a very horrible joke, the premise of which was that my mom was fat, when I was joking about that. And the joke was so horrible. In the middle of the joke, he actually heckled me. He, as a host, heckled me. And he put me down. He said something to the extent of, yeah, we get she's fat, move on, and something like that. And that just destroyed me morally. But still, yeah.
Yeah. So I had that, and then I was like, yeah, I'm done with that, and I'm done with Russian stand-up, especially when it was in its beginning. Like, I still supported all the guys that, were good to me, and a lot of them saw my videos. Like, when I just started out in Australia, I would post them. There's still that stand-up group that's, I think the admin is Zhenya Yevstigniev on VK. The Real Stand-Up, I think that's what it's called. And the guy was like, I remember there was like 300 or 3,000 followers, not a lot at that point, 2011. And all they did was just making subtitles. Like, everybody was there just churning out subtitles for English stand-up. Or like putting their like a short video in some bar with 3 drunks. And that's it. Mm-hmm. So obviously all those videos attracted so much attention. People were like, all right, this is happening. This is like, we're doing it. And I posted a video every week or 2 of me performing stand-up in Australia in English. And I was like, I'm here, like, let's talk. And I communicated with everybody. So that's how we met up with a lot of people, because they were watching my videos through that group. And so I met with Sietlov, and we just kept on talking and hanging out and going to the open mics. And I supported the hell out of those guys. So like, as soon as he had his special, I was like, all right, I'm going. And but your story totally makes sense. Like, sometimes, especially in your like worst moments, you want some support, or at least at that point of time, like someone after the show might come up to meet you and say like, let's go hang out. Don't worry about it. Next week is going to be all fine. You need that. And I think I realized that a few years down the track, and I started doing that to everyone, literally everyone that came to Jim and Jack and got up on stage. If they weren't too like offensive and crass and, not really self-aware of what they were doing, if they were just trying hard, I'd definitely come up to them after the show and be like, yo, next week here, let's get a drink. Let's do this again. And a lot of people, I think that's what pushed them to keep going. And everyone that tried to, just do it a one-off, I definitely try to, make them do it again. Otherwise, there's no competition. It's not fun. And also, nothing really stops you from making the same jokes that are ace. Unless you got more people coming in every week with fresh material, and that's what kind of gets you going. So yeah, back to the main track. Yeah. Switching from English to Russian was horrible, and I did it like 3 or 4 times, and I couldn't find my voice. I mean, when I talk to people, I can still make them laugh in English, I can still make them laugh in Russian, but on stage, I can probably only speak English. On stage, speak in Russian, I can make some sort of announcement, I can make like one joke or something, but I cannot make a cohesive story that people will laugh at, because I start imitating whoever I saw. So English stand-up I watched maybe for a month, up until I tried it for the first time, and that's how I started discovering my voice. And then Russian stand-up I would watch for a few years before I actually tried to do it on my own, and then I walked out on stage and I really just imitated the people that I heard. So Chaparyan and just mostly him. The tone of voice, the delivery, everything. That's, and you see that happening.
Dude, yeah. Pardon the interruption. Just when you mentioned once you mentioned Chaparyan, I'm like, this doesn't make sense, because I always remembered you as like one of the most energetic people in the room. Like, like we have David who would jump around the stage all the time. You would do the same thing, but like twice faster. Because you're younger, obviously, yeah. And
I hope he watches this. Make him.
Yeah. I'll send him this clip. Like, hey, dude. 48 minutes, 10 seconds. That's the one that you need to watch. Yeah, go for it.
David's old.
And yeah, and you would always speak so fast, like, and with such a very good accent, like that was the impression I got of you. And like, I'm just trying to picture in my head you imitating Cipriano, like that deadpan delivery, like
just slow droning. Like that's all I knew at that time. And a lot of people were like that as well. Like Sietlev's relatively animated. Malloy is very animated, but I can't do that. Like whenever I heard Malloy, that's the person I met at that open mic, actually, the one that I bombed at. I met everyone that night. And I was like, I never want to do anything with those people. I am not as good. They're still not there, but I know that they're going to get there. And I mean, well, 8 years later, you see that is happening. But he's got the energy, and he's probably the only one that I can watch with that kind of energy. Because he found his voice. He's like that off stage. He's like that on stage. When we went to Edinburgh, he was definitely like that, but I think he was still in the process of finding the perfect spot, because he did his special way back in 2016. I remember it was like Stand Up Club #1. The kid had a lot of material at that time, and just with the years, he like chiseled at his style, and now it's perfect. But that wasn't me.
They're crazy. Yeah.
They're
These
crazy.
people are
They're just
crazy.
like very dedicated. Well, everybody is. Like, everybody's trying really, really hard. It's just about the number of opportunities that life presents for you to actually perform. And then at some point, I mean, like Dave Chappelle, the guy's just like sees a mic or sees a crowd of people, just instantly walks up and starts testing out, trying out material, going for like hours and hours. And that's how he became so good. That's why he's #1 now. It's just all about
he's still doing that. He's still doing that. He still has the same mentality. Like I remember a story from last year when the open mics were still going on. Yeah, like there was a relatively green comedian who he was like, oh, so we had an open mic. Dave Chappelle was there. Then we sat down and we like brainstormed a couple of ideas. And he put some of his ideas on a napkin, Chappelle, yeah? And then he was like, oh, there is another open mic here starting in 30 minutes. Let's go there. Like Dave Chappelle was like, and he was like, I'm sitting there right next to fucking Dave Chappelle who tells me like, oh, let's go to the to another open mic right now with me. And do this.
The guy's nonstop. Like, well, all of them are. I think a lot of comedians, it takes a lot to put. I don't know. Like, I don't want to really be discussing mental aspect of it or any problems that people might have that push us to actually do it in the first place. Whether it comes from insecurity, whether it comes from that compulsory need for attention, whatever reason people may have that makes them go on stage and try to entertain a bunch of strangers for free for years is still confusing to me. So I try not to get into it, but the drive is really admirable. Like, you don't really see that in a lot of other professions. I think Chappelle said it in the interview with Letterman, and I quoted him recently because Wonderzine was writing an article about sorry, I think my earphone died. Let me pop another one in.
Yeah.
And can you hear me?
Yep.
Sweet. All right. This one's going for charge then. So yeah, he had it in Letterman's show on Netflix where he was like, that's probably the only, like, stand-up comedy is probably the only job that people have where you have to have a second job. Everyone has a second job. Well, I mean, almost everyone has a second job. That's that kind of profession. And I don't think there's anything else like that. Well, music is probably very similar, But at some point, people give up. I think comedy, the only thing you need is yourself.
I read.
You don't need an instrument. You don't need anything.
Yeah, true. I read a lot of articles about stand-up comedy that were written by comedians who started way back at the beginning of 2000s, and they would write these stories like that. First of all, if you wanted to get a spot, you would go to do anything. Like there were comedians who would clean toilets, like literally to get a 3-minute spot. They would do the doors to get some time on stage. And back then, all of them had second jobs. Right now, I think it's a little bit easier because every third comedian, at least in the States that you would talk to, he'd be like, oh, so yeah, I go from city to city and I do Uber as part-time. So
yeah, smart, very smart.
Yeah.
Or like that. Yeah. Well, the BlaBlaCar, I'm not sure if they got an alternative. The one where you just go online and you say, I'm traveling I'm traveling long distance. Yeah. So it makes sense. It's a lot of, it takes a lot of dedication. So that's what's so good about it. And it was great to see people through those years going from literally nothing into people who with great content, great material, and just keep plowing at it. So, but when I met up the English speaking crew and whatever it turned into, from Moscow comedy bar to English Moscow comedy into Steal the Show eventually, it was always the crazy drive that inspired me. It's just people who kept coming, and it's like, oh, we got 3 members of the audience today. Fine, let's do it. I only have 3 jokes. I'll make up the rest of it. And that's when I first hosted for the first time. I remember I came by to Bristol Bar. That's the name of that dungeon. Just a godforsaken dungeon. Just disgusting wall. It literally looked like a torture chamber from like the Middle Ages. It's just like brick, like moldy brick, arches under which this is gonna collapse in no time. In like that movie, The Fool. Where there's a guy trying to warn everybody that the house is going to fall down. And everyone's it's fine. It's okay. That's what it was. But people were doing stand-up there. And at some point I was like, I really want to host. Because that's how you get to hosting. Because when you get tired of doing 5 minutes, and when no one has a special and no one... Really, it's not that hard to put a show together, but you don't really have the audience or the following. So you're like, I'm going to host, and that way I can squeeze in a little bit more than 5 minutes. So I was talking to Nick the whole time, and I was like, I'm going to do it. He's like, yay, that's fine. Online. And the same with Ivan. I was like, Ivan, I'm going to host next week. He's like, yeah, man, good luck, whatever. And then I come up to the bar on the night, and Nick's sitting there, and I think he's writing people down for the list. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? I thought we agreed I'm going to host. And he's like, are you sure? And when someone's asking you, are you sure? And you're not really sure, but you didn't think about it up until that point, you start thinking about it. And that's all you think about. That's all you think. And I'm like, am I sure? Like, this is suicide. Like, do I get laughter? Do my jokes work? Why do I think he asked me directly, he's like, do you think you can host? Like as a challenge sort of thing. And then instantly within 1 second, I'm not really that kind of person. I don't really get angry, but that's one of the few times in my life I got so mad. And I'm like, I am totally capable of crushing it. You just watch me. And he's like, cool, fine. And I don't think he remembers it like that at all. I think for him, it was just like, it's a joke or a prank, or he just really actually didn't believe in me, or I don't know. It could be any of those. But I was like, this is it. Like, I have to make a point now. Like, I have to, like, I wouldn't win in a fight, but in a challenge like this, like, if I crush it, I'll laugh.
It's basically where you push yourself. Yeah, right. Your back is against the wall and you're like, now I want to prove to this motherfucker that I can do it. Yeah. And it's usually like one particular person who said something to you, like you pick a victim, like, who do I hate? Yes. And I'm going to do it out of hatred for you, asshole. So watch it.
And we were good friends at that point. And like, ever since then, I think we're on good terms. But in that moment, I'm like, was he pretending? Is that my enemy? And that's when I was like, oh, that's the fuel. That's how you do it. You just, like how the like fighters and whatever. I said MMA and whatever the other one is before, but I know nothing about fighting. But what I do know, I think, is boxers. They say like I just picture like Mike Tyson and stuff. You're like, I picture my father, whatever, whoever they picture. Same. I think with stand up, it's like once it's a challenge, once you're up against people who really don't care, and it's not just about hanging out with your friends and making other comics laugh. Once it's like, are you actually capable of doing this? You're like, this is such a random game. This is there's no recipe that will make you fun all throughout. Like Dave Chappelle bombs at, half of the open mics he goes to or whatever. I don't know the ratio, but everyone bombs at some particular point. So when a person doesn't really believe in you or starts doubting you in a stand-up game, you're like, this is clearly insane. Like, it's a win or a lose, and you can't really measure the odds. You don't know, and I don't know. But what I can do is I can try, and then if luck has it for me, and like all the work that I've put in and constructing jokes and whatever works, this is going to be my victory. And you don't even have to apologize for not believing in me, but you will know, and I will know that I'm the shit. I'm a fucking legend. So that's what it was, and that drove me to it. And I had such a fun time hosting. I had a great time talking to people. I'm like, that's what I do. I like talking to people. I like making them laugh. I like making them smile at me. I like smiling at them. I just like communication and making people laugh. So I was like, this is it. Like, and every time I hosted ever since then, it was great. I had bad ones when I hosted, but you forget instantly about them. I think mostly because they just end up you drinking a crazy amount of alcohol to forget. So you just don't remember it long term. You're like, I'm pretty good on average. I don't remember one bad night, because after that it was just and then more people sort of came to the community, and Jim and Jack was a big portion of English English stand-up scene in Moscow. I mean, that's when you and I met. That's when I started hanging out more with Igor. That's the first time we went on tour. Yeah, that's the first time we went on tour abroad. I performed before that.
2016, I think that was, because I remember that it was summer probably of 2016. I remember that because I just started at that point, and there was a dead period at the end of July, the beginning of August, when there was no one. Like, it was Dennis, Abed, and me. And Abed and I, we were just starting at that point. And so because there was no one there, we would get like 15, 20 minutes like each, like, go ahead, have fun.
Perfect. I remember that. Like, I performed in other countries before that because I just go on trips. I remember, like, that's the thing that's changed in my life even before COVID. It's very hard to get out of Australia. It's very hard to go anywhere. Like in Russia, because snakes are standing there guarding the gates, and the sun's radiation, you step out of your house and you just instantly burnt. That's why I'm wearing sunglasses indoors, man. The shine. But yeah, like, it's. I remember I would go somewhere all the time, and especially when I started working and saving up a little bit. That was my thing. I just save up for like a ticket on Air Baltic or some other shitty low coster. Even before Pabieda was there, I would just jump on the plane and fly to like France and Sweden and Germany, and instantly I try to find some like crazy open mic there or an actual show where I sign up and do at least 5 minutes, and that became my thing. Like, every trip I went on, I wasn't big on like history or like architecture or something like that. I go around Europe, I don't know anything. There's a fountain, there's a big fortress, fine, that's great. Where's the closest disgusting dive bar I can do 5 minutes in? That was my thing. And people in there would tell me about it. They would be like, okay, that's the city, and they would take me on a tour or something like that. So I was like, this is my way to travel. Like, this is perfect. This is perfect. And at some point, me and the guys were like, yeah, we should go on tour. We should definitely go on a quick tour, do several countries. And I think Igor was in touch with a lot of people from so that there was Slovenia and obviously Croatia. So on between those two countries, there was Teshki. There was a couple more people that were just doing the circuit. They had a few bars and it just kept rotating. So we're like, we should just go there. We should fly in, get a bus, or not get a bus, but like just travel around by bus, hit up like 3-4 cities and do shows there. And that was an absolute, I wouldn't say success, but a great, wonderful time. But it was success in terms of, I think we were sold out in every city and every show went pretty well. And we were rotating as hosts as well. So that's the beautiful part of it, and socializing with other comedians and seeing what they're doing. And I think that's when sort of the idea came to actually do shows in other cities, right? You've got shows in
Rizan, Voronezh, yeah. We do those shows from time to time, yeah. But in terms of opportunities to perform, there are plenty of them actually, because the guys that steal the show obviously have their own club, yeah, where you have English shows like several times a week. You have Jim and Jack's, which is still alive, and you can go there and perform. Stand Up Club #1 does it from time to time, every once in a while as well. So yeah, you've got plenty of opportunities.
And there's also that
English.
other one. What's it called?
Stand-up store.
Stand-up store. Never been to it still to this day.
Oh, dude, it's the quintessential stand-up store. You know, like I think that it was the money. They got the money from guys from several comedians, like Ruslan Bieley, I think, is one of them. Yeah, probably. Yeah, and they built this place as a stand-up store. So you would enter the room. Yeah, there would be a bar by the wall, and that's it. Everything else is stage. Everything else is stage. You would have a staircase which leads to the second floor, where the green room is located. Yeah. And that's it. I performed there twice because they do Ivan actually Yavitz. He does shows there on monthly basis, like once a month English shows. And to my surprise, they're always sold out. You know, and the crowd is actually very, very good there. So that's great.
I can imagine. He offered me to do one the last time I was back, 2018. I was back. I don't know. 2019. I was back the last time. Pre-COVID in June, and he had a show, and I think that was the day I took a trip to Italy, and that was on the day that I was flying out. So I was like, nah, man, I can't do it, and I regretted it. But I still did the wherever Steal the Show was before it became Steal the Show. Remember that, like, it's in the center of Moscow when you have to go down and there's no air conditioning, whatever that bar was. So yeah, I did a show there, and I did another one. And I think that was oh my God, that's probably the last live show. No, I don't think it was the last live show that I did. Could have been. It's a bit tough in terms of time management when I came to here, because essentially the scene is bigger. The scene is kind of like the Russian scene in Moscow, right? The Russian speaking scene. So there's obviously a bunch of open mics that you can attend, but there's also a lot of comedians there. And it could be the case that you rock up and there's 30 to 40 people on the night.
Oh yeah,
if you're an unknown, if you're an outsider, obviously you sign up. There's like there could be 3 brackets, and you could be in the third one, which, you know, takes time. 3 hours sitting in a bar listening to other people talk just to do your 5 is a big investment, right? It's just tough. It's tough being in a bar to start with without a reason, really, for a long time. But 3 hours to do 5 is probably something I kind of drifted away from. Whereas in Moscow, I always had that opportunity because I was there from the beginning, and then was actively writing material, so people knew me, and I could rock up on like Friday, Saturday. I knew I had a spot, so even if I was late and had some work to do or other errands, arrangements, tasks, I could always do them and rock up like just on time, and people would give me 10 minutes. So that kind of kept me going. So last year, I did a few shows on Zoom. Have you done any shows remotely?
Correct. Yeah, I've done, apart from the STS shows that we did back in summer, I also did some other shows as well. Like I did an open mic in the States, Florida. There was a Florida open mic. I did that. And I also did a Japan English open mic. So there was like an online open mic in Tokyo, from Tokyo. And I did that as well. And that was a kind of a mistake from the time management standpoint because, you and I, we actually, we discussed it beforehand, that, I'm going to wake up at 10 a.m., it's 6 p.m. your time. Back then I was like, a Tokyo open mic in English. Great, let me sign up. And then I checked the time difference. I'm like, fuck, I have to wake up 4:30 a.m. Moscow time to do that show. I would have been perfectly fine with that if it wasn't for a couple of factors. Number one, I was freaking tired that day. I remember that. Number two, my wife was pregnant at the time. So you don't want to wake a pregnant woman up with your laughter, and I laugh. You know my laughter, because I think that I could be a part-time laughing guy, behind the scenes in some TV sitcom,
that's like Jimmy Carr's laugh.
It's kind of like that, but it's worse, because my wife told me this. I remember like we were watching one of Jimmy Carr's specials, and there is the part where he jokes about his laughter, and she turns to me and she goes like, you know what? I was sure up until this point that Jimmy Carr has the worst laughter I've ever heard. I was wrong, and she
yeah, watching a Jimmy Carr special together with you would be torture. You wouldn't know if it's the surround sound system or it's actually
exactly, yeah. So how have you changed your style throughout the years? Because I always remembered you as a very energetic guy who would seemingly keep your composure all the time. Like I remember you having not very good shows, sometimes even bad shows, but you looked very confident, and you would still maintain that energy, despite people maybe not laughing or not getting along. Yeah, was that different at the beginning, and how has that changed throughout the years?
So as I said, I started with the pretty crass, pretty dirty one-liner material just because I love Jimmy Carr in terms of productivity. Like every time I see someone and like you see the success, it measures up, right? So he's got however many, like 20 punchlines in a minute. Well, not 20, 10, right? So every like 6 seconds, there's a laughter or something. So I'm like, this dude has got it figured out. One-liners is the way to go. This is clearly a measure of success. And only then, I think when I came to Moscow, I met a few people that were watching a little bit more niche comedians, and they started showing me their stuff. And I realized it's much deeper than that. Like it's kind of like music, where you get to project yourself on stage, you get to tell your story, and your measure of success is just how unique you are. And the funny thing is that everybody's very unique. Like everyone's very different. Everyone's got their own path and they've got a story to tell. So if you've got a skill or you develop a skill to tell that story in an entertaining way, like today, like I didn't prepare anything. And I know that it's mostly been a podcast of nostalgia and, how great it has been. And now it's all gone. But I'm telling you, it always comes back to just bite you again, that bug, and you get back in. So I was away for it for 2 years in my early 20s. Now I came to my late 20s and my early 30s, and I'm feeling that at some point it's gotta return somehow. It's relatively easy once you develop a style, once you realize that this is your voice and that's how you can talk to people and how you can manipulate the tone of your voice or your posture or even your eye contact to make people laugh. Like eye contact's always a good one because it's intimidating, and anything is intimidating for a while. If it's followed up by something nice and lighthearted, like a joke or a smile, it's always the quickest way to make people laugh. Laughter is always a surprise. I remember I read that in a book like 10 years ago. Jimmy Carr had a book with a linguist, I think, called Naked Jape. Jape was like a computer that was spitting out jokes at that time, like a first neural network with jokes.
Holy shit.
And yeah, everyone thought their job was over at that point, but apparently it was just like every neural network. It was just a mumbo jumbo of things, not real jokes. And one thing that he said in that book was that stuck with me. That joke is a surprise. Obviously, he had like classics like comedies, tragedy plus time. Everybody knows that. It's fun to laugh at whatever bad stuff that happened in the past. It's not really good to laugh at the things that are bad now. So like, that's why probably racial stuff, gender stuff, any real beat downs or things that are still a problem, that's why it's not really cool. But anything that's long gone and just gone forever, like Hitler or anything. Obviously, like Holocaust is pretty fresh. You probably wouldn't want to. It's the first time anyone said Holocaust is pretty fresh. You wouldn't want to joke about that.
I would say it smells fresh.
Oh Jesus. Yeah. So that was it for me. I realized that if you keep an eye contact on some person for a little bit and be silent, and that's an uncomfortable thing, and then at some point the crowd starts laughing for no particular reason. They know the tension is there, and then it's sort of dissolved, and that's the element of surprise that's making people laugh. It's kind of like when people figure something out, like they play a game and they complete a game, or they make a puzzle and it sort of all comes together, but you don't know there's that uncertainty for a period of time. That's exactly the same with the joke. People are trying to actively race you to the punchline. Everyone, especially overconfident people who come to that show and don't really want to be there. They're like, I know all the jokes. It's fine. It's garbage. Like, there's professional comedians and I don't want to come to open mics. There's always people like that in the audience, and you see them sitting there. And that's the people that you want to get. You're like, I'm going to break you. And that's the same with everyone you meet as well. I remember I got in an Uber like about 3 years ago with a couple of my friends, and we were just having a discussion, and the driver was very serious and not sad. Like, usually you sense that when people are sad, but this guy was like deliberately sort of standoffish or like distanced from us. And I got it in my head that I'm going to make him laugh. I don't know why, but I just started ticking in my head. I'm like, I'm going to turn this discussion. First of all, I'm going to like just completely steal it and direct it my way. And I'm going to pick something that will make that dude laugh. And I think one of our friends, we were going somewhere to a party or something. One of our friends said we should swing by his house because he wants to get a different set of pants on. Like, he's like was wearing shorts, and he's like, they're not going to let me in the club with shorts or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this is a perfect, like, funny situation thing that I can just squeeze more out of. So I started paying him out, sort of like making fun of the situation. And at some point, that guy, the driver, just breaks down, starts laughing. And I turned to him, and like, the situation was, everyone was kind of sensing that the guy was super tense. But when I did that, I turned to him, and he's just nodding like, and I turned to the guys, and they're like, crushed it. Let's do it. So, that's,
you got me. Yeah. The driver was like, you got me there.
Yeah. He was like, oh, you. And that's the best thing. Like, once you can, it doesn't come from a place of anger or spite or just wanting to make people laugh compulsively, but I try not to do too much over analyzing of why I do things that I do. Why all the comedians that I know, I think that's what gets worse when you hang out with comedians, and I'm sure you've sensed that over the years of whatever the time we've known each other, is that when you gather around with comedians and you start hanging out, everyone's just waiting for a hook. That's all you do. You just sit there waiting for a hook of something funny to say, you wait for someone to slip up and say something stupid. Just, you want to take their head and dip into it, and the whole table's laughing like, ha ha ha, oh, that shirt is ridiculous. To this day, I remember, I don't remember, it was a trip to a foreign land, and I bought a shirt, and I only wore it once. Because I came to Jim and Jack's wearing that shirt, and something was off about it. Or maybe something was off about Igor that day, but he just wouldn't stop paying out that shirt. He got up on stage. He was hosting that night as well. It was the worst fucking situation ever. And I had 5 minutes. And he was just, even when I was in the audience drinking the beer, he was like, look at that ridiculous shirt. This is like a pimp from World War II or something. I don't remember what he said, but it was just so painful, and everyone was laughing. And I was laughing too. But then I came home, I hung up that shirt on the hanger, and I haven't touched it for 4 years.
I can't talk to him about I can't talk to Igor for an extended period of time because of that, because he is a quintessential comedian in that regard. Whatever you say, like every third word, he would take it out and he would joke about it. I'm like, I'm trying to have a serious conversation. Shut the fuck up, for fuck's sake, at least once.
It's tough. Yeah. It's tough. You especially when it goes on for years and you consider it already like a friendship, like a strong friendship that's, surpasses time, surpasses distance as well. Like those friends that you meet up after not seeing for a while, and your conversation dynamic is exactly the same. It is exactly the same. Just make sure you don't wear anything silly. That's you'll never see that piece of clothing again.
And choose your words carefully.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Don't say something ridiculous. I'm sure he'll watch this and I'll get a ton of messages about these sunnies. Like, you just, the sunglasses, the unkept hair, everything in the background will be joked about, dissected. And yeah, it's just wait. We're going to do a follow-up podcast, and I'll just show you all the messages that Igor sent me.
Yeah, sure. I'm all up for it, because I remember, I usually I wasn't like that, because right now I also I try to listen to the what people say. I remember a year ago I went to the countryside to my friend's place, and we were celebrating his birthday. Then one of my best friends was also there, and in the middle of a conversation, something slipped from his tongue, something to the exchange of sucking on sausages or something like that. I kept roasting him for 2 hours straight. Whatever, anything that he would say, I would always cut him off, and I would joke about that. He hated me by the end of that evening. And that's exactly how, but before
not a comedian though, right?
Just not a comedian,
a regular person.
He's just a friend. Yeah, so for him,
that's the worst.
If he was a comedian, then to him I would be you got me, son of a bitch, next time I'll get you. But he was not a comedian, so to him that day I was an asshole. Just that's it.
Exactly. That's why you either hang out with comedians, or you kind of try to hold yourself back every second. If you want to hang out with normal people, that's what you do. You just oh, actually, I had nothing. I'm sorry, guys. Just thought of don't worry about it. And you just learn how to.
Yeah, exactly. But that actually gave me problems when I just started dating my wife, because, back then I wouldn't filter. I didn't have a filter between my brain and my mouth. And I would just say something, just trying to turn everything into a joke, basically. And my wife had a very difficult situation back then with her family and stuff, with her self-esteem. And so the things that I would say, she even told me this. She was like, I kind of get that you're joking, but you're always hitting the most, the weakest spot. How do you do that? And I remember I started thinking about it once I got her to tears. It was a joke, and I thought it was funny, but she started crying, and I was like, fuck, I need to filter what I'm saying.
It's tough. Thing. Well, I mean, that's the thing with the comedians. I don't think there were times when people would get sad, but once they beat you, once they can respond, you cannot. That's the main rule, of everything, of fighting, of verbal attack, is that if a person cannot person cannot respond, I'm not saying that, if they're mute, you probably shouldn't, make fun of them. Like, haha, can't say anything back. I'm just saying that, if they can't really come up with a joke to sort of put you down in your spot, then it's not a fair competition. So
True.
That's why with everybody else, by comedians, you can, sort of restrain yourself, still like make fun of them. That's fine. That's how friendships are created, right? Friends can make fun of each other, but don't beat them down to where they can't really come back from. And that dynamic, that relationship will never be the same. But with comedians, just don't hold back. There will be a day when they, get you back. And I like the shirt thing. I remember that clearly. I had a few moments like that with Igor when I come back, victorious. I remember that was the last time I think I was in Moscow. And I think he came hungry to a barbecue that we had. And I just kept just making fun of him constantly eating or not waiting for everyone to arrive. Like I would walk into the kitchen and I'm like,
he was grilling. Actually, he would grill all the meat, and I remember you standing right next to him, like
I was like, just eat it raw, bro. Don't wait. Just dig into it, right? Like you should have just. I think I saw a cat on the way here. Like whatever I said, I kept going at it. And with the comedians, when you hang out, you also get progressively more drunk and unfiltered. And I remember this specific point where he just was silent. He could have been tired. He might not have been taking it to heart. Knowing him could be the case that he was just like, oh, I'm just tired and bored. But I think I got to him at like a specific point of time. I'm like, I made him feel bad. That's crazy. Like he's like bulletproof. Like it's insane. So that at that time I was like, yay. But also I was like, it's my friend. Probably not a big yay. Maybe like
yay. But I remember like my first impression of you, because I was there when you hosted the show, which was my first show that I've ever done. And I remember like again, like about you talk about the t-shirts. Yeah, I would always remember you wearing all black on stage. And the first time I saw you, I was like, is he like doing this professionally? Because there is like a psychological thing about it that when you perform on stage, you should cover everything in black apart from your head, basically like a talking head. Yeah, that people would pay attention to this. Yeah, like is he doing that, or is he trying to cover the fact that he's fat a little bit? Like that's
that as well.
That's yeah. But I remember like I walk into the room, I see you on stage, like running around, very energetic. The first analogy I had of you was he looks like Jacoby from Papa Roach. That was my first analogy.
Is that the lead singer? The guy with the spike hair?
That's the frontman.
I mean, they all probably got spike hair.
That's the frontman, but you reminded me of him like from 18 years ago, like when he would also come to perform like dressed in everything black, that that comfy black t-shirt, like how do they call it, long fit t-shirt, or something like that. Yeah. So that was a cool moment. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And again, like
I figured it out very early on, and I also adopted it as my like regular style in terms of black t-shirts. It like someone said it, Kevin Smith said it. I remember it distinctly in like Evening with Kevin Smith Part 2 or something. He just goes, he's talking about being fat and whatever, paying himself out, and then he's like, or someone made a joke about him being fat in the audience, and he's like, oh no, I remember now. He had like a Q&A show, the normal one. It was a video on YouTube. It wasn't even a part of his stand-up, where a guy just goes, so I have a question. So are you going to start making good movies anytime soon? Or something like that. And Kevin Smith is like, and the crowd is just super aggressive because they're all fans. It's not a stand-up show. It's people that have come to see that one guy and they love him. So someone's being aggressive. Everyone's like, boo, like, get out of here. And then Kevin Smith is like, wait, calm down. He's like, I've got a lot of things in the works. I've got multiple projects, several scripts I'm writing, and I'm going to get to it as soon as I stop fucking your mom. And it was like an
Classic.
Easy dig. Yeah, but for 2010, I was like, this is hilarious. This is the best. And what he said is, the guy was walking away, and No, he was walking towards him, and he's like, "Hey, don't come any closer. I can see your man boobs from that distance. Don't come any closer." He's like, "I'm paying you out for being fat, but I'm also fat. 2 rules, but I don't look fat. 2 rules, motherfucker. Wear black and wear layers." And I was like, to me, it was like a good joke and everything, but also life fashion advice just wrapped into that tip. I'm like, I should try out black t-shirts. And ever since then, that's the only thing I do. Like, I don't really leave the house without them. Like, inside, I can wear whatever. Like, I go out, it's probably going to be black.
I actually do the same thing right now. I have a whole bunch of t-shirts, which I bought, like just in stock from H&M or something like that, I'll just put them on whenever I go do stand-up. I know, maybe it's the age thing, I mean, like, I'm married, I have a little daughter, I don't give a fuck, how I look. For me, I'll just spit on my head,
been skinny,
do my
though.
hair. Yeah. Like, well, I used to be very fat. Like, when I finished school, I was, I think, about 110 kilos. Yeah.
What? How'd you lose weight? Was that like a deliberate thing, or you just lost baby fat?
No, deliberate. I did it on purpose because, and the reason, like, the crazy reason was not, like, people think that, you probably would want to lose weight because, like, girls don't pay attention to you, or something like this. For me, it was the other reason. I hated that every time I would walk out, especially in summer, 2 minutes in, I start sweating. I hated that.
Yeah.
Like, I hated that, and that's why I decided to lose weight. But then it turned out that it's just genetics. It's my genetics. So that I was like, fuck, I spent 6 months of my life for nothing. I could have eaten delicious food, and then I kept eating salads and stuff like that, killing myself with all those exercises, and fuck it. Give me back my 30 kilograms.
But you lost it. You lost a lot of weight. It's still very, very cool and admirable.
You too, actually. Yeah, I think you're proud of that fact. You lost plenty of fat. Weight. Sorry. Yeah.
Dude,
as I remember,
I've slimmed down. I've slimmed down over the years, and it took me ages to figure it out. It took me a few 100 kilometers to figure it out because I was just running all the time. I think starting in 2013, I was running in Russian winter. That's how insane it got at a particular point. I would just wake up at like 5 a.m. Yeah, like where I still got the jacket that I wore. I just put it on, like my mom would wake up pretty early, and I was still living with her at that point in time, and she would just give me this look of like, "You're insane. Are you sure you..." Like, at first it was like questioning me, like, "Are you sure you're going to do this?" And then she would just look at me like, "Okay, fine." And I'd go out and run for 30 minutes in the snow and whatever, and then I'd run in summers and whatever, everything else to lose the weight. But then it took me years to understand that it's all about food. It's not about the exercise. Exercise is good. Exercise is amazing to keep you fit and keep you from like choking up when you're running up the stairs or doing anything physical. Really, you can carry stuff. I don't know. Being physically fit is amazing. It also looks good. But if you don't care about the muscle, like I was always jealous of people who were extremely like flat and skinny, people who can take their clothes off, like take their t-shirt off or go to the beach and not care about it. And then again, I realized that, extremely skinny people, they were ashamed as well. Like, it's just, it's in your head. You're never happy with what you've got. Like, you either want to be taller or you want to be shorter. I've heard people say that as well. Like, I've met girls saying that I'm too tall because most guys are shorter than me, and I don't like that. You'll never be happy. You'll figure out something that will just but that's mental thing, and this could be very dangerous as well, because at some point, I think I was 20 by that time, I slimmed down to 66 kilograms. Like, I looked like a fucking skeleton, and you're tall as well. Like,
I'm 192. I'm 192 centimeters, and that looked horrible. Like, I remember the moment, and it was mental, because to me, I was scared of gaining weight back. Like for me, I was like, all that work for nothing. No, I don't want to do that. And I realized how scary that looked when two of my best friends told me, like, dude, you look like you're gonna die right now, like with a serious face, like you look like you're gonna die right now. And I was like, fuck.
But it's all in here. Yeah. It's all perception. You never know when you're gonna be happy. Like as I was losing weight, I'm like, oh, I like my chin. I like having one to start with. It's good to have one chin. I'm like, yeah, that's great. And then you're happy with that for like an hour, because then you like take your t-shirt off and you're like, yeah, probably not great to have breasts and a belly. That's probably should be gone. You put on a pair of skinny jeans and you're like, that's like that. This is not my style. But no one's wearing, like the baggy jeans. No one's listening to that old school hip hop. Even Jay-Z is wearing like a suit now. Like no one's wearing baggy pants. So I need to figure something out. I either need to slim down or sort of like change the way I dress, or just be happy with what I am, because it doesn't seem like people really are ostracizing me for that. The only thing that's a big effect that's very noticeable is that I'm not comfortable. And then I started going on stage and I realized I saw all those pictures from Jim and Jack, from all the other shows that we did, and I was never happy about the pictures. There's like 1,000 pictures on my Facebook that I hate looking at. But they're still there. Like, I'm like, this is me. Like, you just accept it. And you accept that different times in your life you look different. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But then over time, as you get older, you look at all the pictures that of you when you were younger, and all of them look good because you're younger.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, God, look at the energy, the spark in the eyes. Yes.
I start noticing that I'm 28 right now. Like I started noticing that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How? You also got a kid, man. You got a kid and a wife.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you must be constantly tired.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I have the light set up here, so hopefully that people will not see huge red circles around my eyes. Yeah,
that's why I'm wearing these.
Yeah.
Also hides all of your premature wrinkles or whatever.
Oh my God! Again, yeah, man, my forehead is full of them. Like really full of them. So yeah, I'm
getting those because I'm constantly smiling or laughing. Like this is just permanent. I think I had them since I was like 15.
Yeah,
just
me too.
Slight
me
lines.
Too, me too.
Yeah, and the crow's feet, just because it's always like a squint and a smile. But then that comes with the job.
I think that we are like in 10 years we're gonna look like such people that people would look at us and they would be thinking like, are they 20 or 50? Like, there's something in between. Like when you look at Asian people, sometimes very often, I mean, yeah, you're kind of figuring it out because they look like they're somewhere between 20 and 60. Like you can't tell the age. You're just guessing it there.
Agree. I'm so bad with age. I met some people and I was like, you're 100%, you're like 29 or whatever. And the person was like, nah, I'm 19 or something like that. And then you meet someone who's who looks super, super young. And they're like, yeah, I'm actually 35. I can't guess.
Yeah.
What you
wanted to ask you another question because I know for a fact that you used to have some sort of pre-stage rituals that you would somehow like psych yourself to do that. And there's one particular story I wanted to ask you about because Igor told me I think several times about that, how you used to do push-ups before going on stage, and once that actually didn't end up very good, very well, because you ran out of breath right the moment you got on stage. There was something like that. Now, what was the story there?
I think he remembers all of my fuck ups, but I don't remember that particular time. I remember multiple times when I was just out of breath by the time I get to the stage, and I just have. But it really gives me that energy when I walk out on stage. It's like it's raising your adrenaline, and people love that. Like when you're highly energetic and it's not to the point of annoyance, But then again, if it fits your style, right? So I'm energetic. I like talking. I'm very talkative. Very animated, so to speak. And that just psychs me up even more. That just puts me right into that gear, no matter what happened to me before. And like sometimes before the show, you might have like a beer or something, and alcohol is actually a depressant, so that really like it mellows you out too much. 10 push-ups, man, that will put you right back in. Sit-ups I started doing as well, because you can't, like, it's bars, man. You do push-ups in a bar. I don't want to touch that floor. I don't want to even stand on it. Like, I don't want to touch it with my hands. Like, no. And I started doing sit-ups. I started doing jumping jacks as well. It's a good way to psych yourself out before you go on stage. I think I heard it from Joe Rogan or somebody else that they were not cigarette smokers, but they would take a couple of puffs, either like of a nicotine vape or of a cigarette, right before they go on stage, because it gives you a head rush. So I was like, can't really smoke in bars anymore. Can't really smoke in the green room. Not in all of them. Anyways, but you can do push-ups. You can do something to psych yourself out. And then you get there and you're ready. You're ready to crush it. And I need that energy. If I was doing deadpan, I'd probably, I don't know, take a nap before the show.
You just watch Hadiko or something like that. The most depressing movie in the world. Like, okay, I'm ready. Release the crack. Do morphine or whatever. Yeah,
just like
something like that.
Everyone,
what was
doing tonight?
I like this. Yeah. What was your craziest story on stage? Can you point, like, maybe something stands out to you, like which even made you go like, wow, that's mental.
I don't really remember crazy stories, but I got a fun one, and I'm sure Igor remembers that one. I'm surprised that he didn't tell you that one instead of the push-ups one, because the push-ups was always like a normal thing for me. I didn't care what people thought. Everyone would laugh right before I do them, but then I'd go on stage and people were like, that's why. And but one time, actually, you might have been there as well. I just definitely remember Dennis was there and Igor was there, because those people just couldn't stop laughing. And Igor was hosting, so by the time he got to the mic after I left, he was like, you didn't even have to say anything. He was like, good night. That's it. And I was on stage. I think I was a bit nervous, and it wasn't even the stage. It was that English speaking club somewhere in the center of Moscow. I think it was right before I left. I was nervous about the whole set, and I wanted to finish it up, but the crowd was so nice and pleasing, and I just wanted to say, thank you, you guys been awesome. But what came out of my stupid mouth was, thank you, you guys been awful. And it took me another 2 seconds to process what happened, and I would just say it, and I'd expect like a round of applause or whatever, and with the tone of voice, it's like a farewell thing, right? So people are clapping even if they didn't like your set. So you're like, that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting some applause so I can just walk away. But they're all just sitting there, and I'm thinking, what did I just say? I just told them they're shit. I just told them they're awful. And then I turned to Igor and Dennis, and they both are like, and he walks up to the mic all shaking, and he just can't stop laughing. He grabs the mic, laughs into the mic, doesn't say anything. The crowd's laughing. I'm embarrassed. I start laughing because I'm like, this is the craziest thing that never happened to me. I misspoke. But what other stuff? I mean, there were some pretty bad shows in terms of turnout. I think we had a show in like a cyber stadium somewhere in Moscow in 2015. Someone had a brilliant investment idea of opening, you know how they have like Dota championships or like Counter-Strike championships. They got like a massive hole. Someone opened that up in 2015 in Russia, or 2014 even. And there were like 5 people there playing Dota, and they wouldn't have any championships, right? It's a weird, probably another money laundering place. But someone had a genius idea that we absolutely have to perform there. It's a big stage, massive stage, costs nothing to get there. Again, it's Russia, so it's a friend of a friend is the owner, and he's happy to have us. Just let's bring the audience. But it was 2015, so There's like
someone's
5
nephew,
people.
probably.
Yeah, someone's nephew, like the son of the owner or the owner themselves. I don't know. Someone. And we rocked up there, and there was literally, first of all, there was like 4 people in the audience, or like maybe 9. But the place was so massive that it really stood out. So everyone there was only one row. People just occupied one row, and the rest of it was empty. And that was it was also all the people that heard the jokes before that. I think we were going at it together for about 2 months at that point. So no one really had decent material to stretch out. I mean, at that point. So like Nick has been going at it back in Finland for years at that point. And still, we knew his jokes. We knew all of his material. So that was just embarrassing. You get out there, you see 4 people that you know there, but you're in a massive hall that makes you feel like a superstar. You've got like an expensive microphone in your hand. Oh, I remember a crazy thing that happened. Well, not a crazy. I mean, it's probably relatively normal, but after performing for a few years in Moscow, that's probably not very conventional. We went on tour with Igor. I went to Edinburgh first. No, first I went to Finland to see Louis C.K. That was the last time I saw Louis C.K. Or the only time I saw Louis C.K. And then I think that will be the last time I'll see Louis C.K. And I went there with Blake. Remember Blake?
Oh, sure. Who doesn't?
Yeah. And Blake and I went to Finland. We saw a Louis C.K. show, got absolutely wasted. In the morning, I got on a plane. I flew to Edinburgh for 2 weeks. Did the Fringe there for 2 weeks with the guys from Stand Up Club Number 1. And Ivan was there. And then after that, I flew down to Croatia and did a show with Igor. That was my most productive like stand-up month of my life. Up to that point, I was like, that's it. I could live this. But then I realized like I ran out of all my clothes. Like I was just disgusting, dirty, and filthy. And I was like, no, that's not for me. But when we came there, we did a show together, I think. And then I had a festival. Punch Festival in Slovenia. And then I met up with the comedians there. And one of them was Daniel Ryan Spalding. The dude is a blast. Hysterical. Really, really funny Canadian dude that he lived in Amsterdam. Now he lives in Berlin. And he's a gay guy. So he talks a lot about that in his stand-up. He's very animated, very high energy as well. I think we clicked. We communicated a lot after the years went by. And he made out with a guy on stage, with an audience member.
Wow.
First of all, I've never seen anyone do it with it, like, not heterosexual, not homosexual. No one could ever pull from the crowd. Like, it was just insane. Like, you could technically, like, get with someone after the show if they liked you. But during a performance that was midway through, he's just like looking at this one guy who's laughing. He's like, hey, how you doing? Whatever. And just waves at him. The guy comes up on stage to start making out. And I'm just like, it's just the weirdest scene I've seen I don't think I've seen men kiss at that point. Then I moved to Australia and realized it's a very normal thing. And, but on stage, pulling an audience member within 4 or 5 minutes, it was crazy. It was unbelievable to see that. So at first I was like, this is skill. This is game. This is everything. Dude's a legend. Just
wow, that's incredible. That's probably one of the most incredible stories I've heard from a stand-up show. Because I mean, it's shock. It's a total shock from all perspectives. Like, you know, especially from the comedians. I mean, I'm trying to imagine how I would be like. You know, I would be just standing there with my jaw on the floor. You know, like I
was too. I was like, is this like a part of the act? But I saw him the night before, and the night before we did 3 shows together, I think. And that didn't happen. We'd hang out afterwards, and he was good. Like, he's very like suave and just a great person to talk to, and he's got game. But in the middle of performance, and then he finished it, and he finished the whole performance like on a highest note. Like, even that people were like, "Oh yeah, that's fun." And then he had a couple of really, really, really like spot on jokes, and just peace.
Wow,
that guy,
nice.
That guy killed. Yeah, Daniel Ryan Spalding, man, is the GOAT. So do you have any crazy stories? Anything like completely out of whack happened to you?
Oh man, I mean, I once saw how an audience member wanted to punch a comedian on stage. Like that's what the situation there got very intense, actually. But I mean, we've all, I think, heard or seen something like that at one point, yeah. Because Abed has a story where he nearly got punched by a woman on stage at stand-up club number one. Yeah, and
I'm not surprised as you say it. I've just processed it in my head, and I'm like, just once.
Just
that seems like a recurring weekly situation.
Yeah, exactly. My crazy story would always be that first time that I did, not the first time that I did Russian stand-up, but the first time I did a 15-minute set in Russian. So I did a couple of open mics for Ruslan Mukhtarov's shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to that one.
Yeah, thanks to those guys, I actually lost a couple of friends because they have one condition, like you need to bring 2 friends with you if you want to perform, and there's a list of like 32 comedians. So imagine what a kind of a torture that was for my friends to sit there and wait for me, like number 28, fuck you. Yeah, and so after a couple of those shows, a girl who was organizing, one of the organizers, she texted me. She was like, "Hey, our sound guy wants to wants to put together his own stand-up show. Do you want to perform?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she goes, 15 minutes. I'm like, "Of course." I just started Russian. You give me 15 minutes, I would kill for 15 minutes in Russian. And that was a place called Harats, but not in the on Kurskaya or nowhere near the center. That was on Domodedoevskaya. So that was like a far end of Moscow. And so I get there, and there are a couple of things I didn't know. First of all, yeah. So what I knew is that we would be like an intermission act. So there would be some event and there would be an hour intermission, and we would fill that hour, me and 3 other comedians. So I get there, and the first thing that I see, so I go to the bathroom, yeah, and the first thing that I see a girl standing in the men's restroom puking into the sink. I was like, okay, that's a great start. So what it turned... Yeah, this sure seems to be a promising evening. So what it turned out to be, it was a special night where a lot of amateur bands were performing there, covering some metal songs. You know, covering like yeah. And there was one little problem there because so we come to this guy who put this all together, and he was like, yeah, in an hour you will have like 15 minutes on stage, blah, blah, blah. What we didn't know is that up until the beginning of that show, no one even had a clue that there would be stand-up in the intermission. So, like, you have an entire venue filled with, let's say, 100 people, yeah, who are wearing leather vests, leather pants. Someone is having sex in the corner, you know, like stuff like that. A couple of guys are playing table soccer, yeah, like screaming and shouting. And then in the middle of this, oh, by the way, in 30 minutes, we're going to have a break. And during that break, there will be stand-up. Like, oh, okay, good, nice.
And you got 15 minutes to
yeah, and I have 15 minutes. That's just, and that was like the 3rd time I've ever did Russian. So I was nervous as hell. And, you know, like for me, it's much easier talking about that. Yeah. On a side note, that for me, it's much easier to do English comedy because right now I write my jokes in English. You know, I don't even think about comedy in Russian. So whenever I do Russian, you could hear that I'm translating my jokes into Russian, like in the middle of the set. And that's always been the problem for me. But back then I prepared. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And so we didn't even have the stage. So there was like a spot, like a space that they gave us like for a stage. I go there, and what ended up happening is that out of that of those 100 people, only 30, about 30 of them actually cared. So they form this.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad for that time, of course. So they form this kind of a 3-layer half circle, you know, right in front of us. And as we're performing, right to the left of us, there is the entrance. Yeah, and at that entrance, there is a table soccer, you know, a table football, whatever you call this thing.
Yeah.
And the guys who, yeah, exactly, yeah. And the guys who are playing there, they're actually screaming so loud, they're out shouting us performing. So, and the sound guy is probably drunk or something like that. I don't know, because nobody increased the volume of the microphone. So I'm standing there, I'm sweating like a pig again, and I finish it. It was relatively good for my third time doing that. So I'm like, I need a beer. I finished that. I need a beer. So I go to the bar, and there is a girl standing right near the bar. I come over. She looks at me and she goes, "Hey, was that just you performing?" I'm like, yeah, it was. And she looks at me and she goes, "Oh my God, that was so horrible. That you were disgusting. If I were you, I'd never do it again." And she leaves. And I'm like,
encouraging.
Yeah, and I was so shocked, but in my head, I'm like, I have to say something. So the only thing that came out of my mouth was, as she's leaving, I yell at her, "I can host your wedding."
Did you?
Yeah. And so,
that would have been a great punchline to the story. Is like, yeah, I did it last week. This is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Still friends.
So she leaves. I grab my beer. I come to the other two comedians and I tell them the story. I'm like, "Hey guys, can you imagine what just happened?" And one of those guys looks at me and goes, "Wait a minute, was that a blonde girl with short haircut?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, and he starts laughing. I'm like, "What's wrong?" He goes, "So she was standing right next to you to the stage, yeah? She was filming your entire set, and after every punchline, she would go like, 'Ha, not funny.'"
That's heavy.
Yeah,
that is heavy.
Yeah, that was like probably the most depressing and for me the most impactful on me, because you know that was the first time that I had something like this. I mean, I had a host heckle me in the middle of my set. That was probably more savage if you think about it. Yeah.
Still can't let go. You still can't forgive Kirill.
That fucking pirate. Anyway, yeah.
Get him on the podcast. That's gonna be fun.
I want to. You know what? Come to think about it, I think I can say it right now. I have a very crazy idea for this year. Yeah, because I'm saving money right now to buy a good camera, and what I want to do, I want to make a short documentary movie about English stand-up in Moscow. I really want to do this like out of nowhere. I just want, you know, the same reason why I started doing the podcast. I feel like doing that. Yeah. And I need to get all those people in, like I need to get Seattle. I need to get Ivan as well, you know, because every single person who I talk to, they're all saying the same thing, that Ivan was the person who basically started all of this. He put everything together, and thanks to him, this path was laid, so to speak.
That's the crazy thing. When I met a person who was performing in front of empty chairs, that's when I was like, okay, that's dedication. You can do whatever you want in places that are already established and have a scene, but doing something like that is already, like, it's tough doing stand-up in a language that no one wants to speak in your city, or people who do, they don't really want to hear jokes. They want to learn it, right? They want to have a conversation thing, like a conversation club, or like they go to take lessons and stuff like that. They try to meet with expats and hang out to practice. They don't want to figure out jokes. He did it. He did it. Yeah, number one, the OG, man, the original.
And he has a very interesting story as well, because he started it in English. He started doing stand-up in English. Then he transitioned to Russian, and he's pretty successful. I mean, he was on TNT. Yeah, he's doing all sorts of shows right now, and like he's probably one of the best Russian comedians that I've ever seen on stage.
He's definitely, well, I love watching him, and I love his stand-up. I like anything that's sort of out of the ordinary. That's why I like Kirill as well. It's just anything that's not the same. Like, I don't know. Not going to bag Russian stand-up at all. It's great. It's successful. It took off. There's a lot of new faces, but the more different they are, the more I'd like to see them. And that's just one of the guys that I want to see in English. And that's one of the guys that I want to see in Russian. Because his stuff is... It's ace. The way he constructs jokes... Yeah, top notch. It's watched a lot of stand up. Clearly, he's got probably more years of experience in both languages than any of us. I don't think anyone else performs in two languages or has been for that long. So there's obviously people who do that have their main thing, and then they just like Malloy.
I know only one other guy. Yeah, I know only one other guy who can match him in this experience. That's probably Chibatkov. Zhenya Chibatkov. He probably
but he started much later. We met in like 2017, I think. Right before I left, I think. A year before I left. Unless he did it back in the US or where he used to live
Canada.
somewhere else.
I think he lived in Canada. Yeah.
Canada, right.
Yeah, so probably.
I mean, but still, I think Russian is his primary one. Whereas Ivan has both. Like, he did a huge chunk of his time in English, and then he did a huge chunk of time in Russian, and now he's pretty well versed in both, which is an incredible skill, because then he can write jokes. As we said, he's like, you write one, and you're like, this is clearly an English joke. You write another one, this is clearly a Russian joke. You sort of separate the streams.
And the best thing
for us,
about
maybe
that
you can write a Russian joke, but you're like, how am I going to use it? I don't do Russian stand-up.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you here, because the most incredible thing for me about him is that he can do it in both English and Russian, and he's different in both of them. So his Russian is way different than his English humor, and vice versa. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, I have no idea how he does that, but wow. That's my hats off to him for doing that.
Yeah, do the documentary, man. I'm very excited about that idea, and if you want to chat about it, I definitely can remember a couple more facts about English stand up and people to talk to for sure. Maybe even people who sort of drifted away. Probably want to talk to the audience as well, who's been through the years with us.
Oh, that's definitely that is definitely So one more thing I wanted to ask you, man. Thank you once again for doing that. I mean, 2 hours, and it's like nothing almost for me. Like, it's been such a nice conversation.
It's already nighttime outside in Australia.
I can see it's getting darker. Yeah, Howard Stern puts off his glasses, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Iron Man.
Yeah. So one more thing I wanted to ask you. One of the things that I forgot to mention is that you actually did Fringe. And for a lot of comedians who start, one of the major goals for them is to go and do Fringe. And a lot of obviously a lot of stories, a lot of expectations. Sometimes it even elevates comedians' careers after they do Fringe. Yeah. What was it like for you? Well, very rarely, but still. So what was it like for you doing Fringe, and did your expectations match the reality when you did that?
Well, to me, it was just fun, but that's the way I treat stand-up. It's always just been a fun thing to me. I don't think I ever considered... Every time I got money for it, I felt a bit bad. I mean, that's not to say that once I come back to it, to anyone who wants to book me, I love money. Don't forget that. I do. But every time I got any considerable sum of money for actually doing it, I felt weird because I really, really enjoy it. Right? Like it's like if you like massages and you go get a massage and someone starts paying you for that, it's kind of strange. So I like making jokes. I like making people laugh. So that was the weird bit for me. But Fringe was different. Fringe is never, well, Fringe is never a way to make money. Fringe is always about something else. It's either to just make it a tick mark, like I did it, and that's it, and you want to know how it feels like. It's like skydiving, right? You just want to know what it feels like just so you can like have that experience in your life. You never think like, oh, Fringe is a great place to build an audience. Fringe is never a great place to do anything else promotional wise. Like there's a lot of people from all over the world that go there and they just hang out, and stand up is not always a priority for them. Like, it's pretty much a comedian's club. It's a comedian's fest. You go there and you introduce yourself and you get to hang out with a bunch of comics and you get to meet a lot of your favorites and you get to find out a lot of new faces. So to me, it was a good practice. First of all, you perform every day, and then you run around the city trying to find open mics, which unfortunately I did very little of. Like, I wanted to hang out. I wanted to see some shows, because it was my first Fringe. But if I was living in Russia, I'd probably take some time off and go there every year to at least watch and maybe do some open mics. So that's what it's good for, is just active practice and networking and meeting and seeing what people do there, because that what happens every time you go abroad to do stand up. You see a different way that people do it. For example, when I went to France, in Paris, there's this guy Sebastian Marx. He's still doing it, pretty successful, but he was hosting an open mic there in 2013 when I went there. And what they did, because Paris is such a tourist-filled place, they didn't even consider the French population. They don't really speak English. They don't care about English. What they did would just go out and find like most tourist places and give people flyers. So that's the only crowd that they were kind of aiming towards. You go around the world, you see what it's like. You go to Fringe, and then you see probably the freshest stuff. If you like European and English comedy, that's the place to go. If you like, people from the States don't really usually get there. You probably go to Just for Laughs or something like that if you want to see the North American comedy. But if you're into like European, maybe even Asian and specifically English comedy, Fringe. Both if you're a fan and if you're a comedian. I think everyone had a great time. I was there, as I said, with some of our guys, some of the guys from Stand Up Club number 1 at that point. And they were pretty exhausted. I remember by the time I got there, it was just raining, and I walk out to the street that the bar we had the show at, and I just see Malloy in the middle of the street, just covered in rain, jumping at people from like out of the corner with a flyer, just going, Russian stand up. And that's what you do for about 2-3 hours a day. That's your day. You wake up, you try to like put yourself together. And whether you had a great night or a bad night, they mostly end up in drinking and going to other shows. If you're not like a big name comedian or have a ton of cash or somehow manage to promote your show to get a lot of people in, you're probably going to be performing at 2 p.m. in like a restaurant or something, or like in a pub that no one's drinking at 2 p.m.
Not the prime time spot, yeah.
Not the prime time spot. So, but still, it's great practice. So after you're done with it, it's 3 p.m. The whole day's ahead. The whole evening's ahead. So what you do is just go hang out with comedians, go have dinner with them, go like have drinks with them, go just see all kinds of shows. And but at that point of time, I was like, maybe I shouldn't perform. Maybe I should stick to just walking around seeing shows, because I saw the guys were exhausted. They were already there for 2 weeks. I forgot that. So, flyering and selling yourself for 2 hours, 3 hours every day can be a bit hard, especially for a person who's trying to do jokes on stage. You don't really have much time with people. You can't really, and you got to sell yourself. Not a lot of people have that mentality. You're not really, that's what I'm saying. You're not really in the business of comedy. You're in the art of comedy. That's not on your mind, but there it has to be on your mind, or you're going to have an empty stage. It's not anybody else's responsibility to fill up that hole. And the less people come in, the less donations you get, the more you'll end up paying for this trip. And you will always end up paying more for this trip than you earn, even if you're Ari Shafir or anybody else that actually managed to come out to Fringe out of the big name comedians. Still, it was very fun. On the next day, it was great. And that's the comparison to, I did the Fringe here as well in Melbourne 2 years ago, 2 years ago.
Oh, cool.
And
how was that?
It was great. And by the time that I actually got to do Fringe, I already knew some people from the circuit. So I met up with some of them. There's a big Parliament building here and a massive square in front of it. And that's where you... sorry, I need to... Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, there was a call coming in, and basically you go to that square and you flyer as well. But I came to that square in Melbourne for the Melbourne Fringe, and I didn't see anybody I knew from the scene. They were just random people hanging out flyers. I'm like, what's happening? And then I saw someone come in that I knew, and I came up and I was like, Andrew, what's up? How's the flyering going? And he's like, oh, I don't flyer. I can't. It's just embarrassing to try to sell yourself. So comedians here save up money to pay other people to flyer for them.
Wow.
It was just, it was unbelievable for me. Not everybody, most of them. And then I saw another dude that I knew from open mics, and I came up to him and he wasn't flyering. He was just standing there with his bag, just breathing. And I'm like, dude, what's up? He's like, I was just trying to muster the courage to speak to people. I'm like, you do it on stage. What is happening? And I realized probably people in the Edinburgh Fringe were doing the same. They could have been doing the same. I don't think Ari Shafir was flyering for himself, but the Russian comedians were. And hats off to them for that. Malloy, Medvedev, Vova Bukharov, Ivan, and someone else was there. Nick was there, I think. Just every day, 3 hours. Hey, this is me. This is my face on the flyer. Come see me. I'm going to be performing. And that's such an experience. So that's why I'm saying everybody's got to go to Fringe at least once and do the whole thing, because it just puts it in a different perspective. Trying to sell your stuff, that'll be good.
Yeah. I think it also, kind of shows you if you really want to do it or not.
Alexa, turn on the lights in the lounge.
Yeah. Back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just turned off the mic because I was turning the lights on.
Okay. So, I think that that's a very useful experience, because just like bombing on stage for the first time, like really hard, it just shows you whether you really want to do this or not. Just like how much you really want it, Do you want people to come and see you? Do you want to continue doing stand-up and stuff like that? Such situations usually give you the answer to this question. Like all the time.
100%. When it's just like sharing a post on Facebook or telling your friends that, oh, I've got a show on Friday, come see me if you want, or getting two friends to come to the open mic with you, that's one thing. Trying to sell your show to some strangers in an unknown city where people have a book filled with thousands of names and shows and everything to see, and you just standing there with a pen, grabbing their book and circling your show and going, that's it. That's the best one. Everybody else around here, they just, they're shit. Come see me. If you have to do it for a month every day, that sort of solidifies the dedication. You're like, okay, I guess I am great. I guess I am going to have to do this. Like otherwise it just sort of breaks you and then you'll never come back to it again. But if you're at Fringe, you're already invested enough, I guess, to, be doing it. That's so you already answered it in your head. So there's no going back for sure.
Yeah. Oh man. Look, thanks a lot once again for agreeing to do this.
Yes.
Yeah, we already hit it. Yeah, it's like 2 hours and 8 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah, something like this. So yeah, it's like more than 2 hours already. So
amazing. Yeah, I can definitely see that you barely can see me now. Like we went straight into the Melbourne's night.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for doing that. Unfortunately, we couldn't avoid some technical difficulties. Hopefully, the next time it will be better, because I really want to do this again. There are so many other topics I want to discuss with you. Yeah. So once again, thank you for agreeing to do this. And one final question to all the people who are listening to this and probably maybe want to try and do stand-up. Yeah. Any piece of advice you want to give them?
Oh, that's so tough. I have no authority to speak on that. But just like with everything, except for probably heroin, try it. Try it. If there's something in you that's like, that's my thing, then that's your thing. If it doesn't click for you, try it one more time. Maybe it's going to get better. And maybe, after a few times when you're like, I think you got to be obsessed with it. If you like how it looks, if you like how people doing it on stage look, and you have doubts of whether or not you can do it, but you really want to, then you can do it. 100%. Anybody can do it. That's the thing with everything. Anybody can do it. That's the common thing with heroin.
Truer words could not have been spoken. All right, so thanks, man, a lot for doing this once again, and to every single person who listened to this or watched it on YouTube. Thanks, guys, a lot too. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Before the Punchline Comedy Podcast. Till then, take care. I'll see you next week, guys.